Okay.
All right, and we are live. Let me just add speakers to the stage. Umoya Ulight, Umoya Upright. Welcome to the second edition of the Artists Indaba, where we gather as artists in South Africa. As you know, our brains are just not wired in an administrative way. So now we're having to create collectives and come together to see how we can work around the issue of artist exploitation, of unfair contracts, of outdated ways of doing things in the industry. As AI comes in, obviously it's affecting some of the artists' work. And last month we gathered. The minutes are available on the Artists Indaba WhatsApp group. And if anybody else needs them, please do reach out to me, whether it's through YouTube or my social media. We can make the minutes available for the first Indaba. But one of the most important things that came out of that first Indaba was that we need to find a way that our royalties can make their way to us. Because currently what we're having is we have collecting societies that are collecting the money from the broadcasters, from wherever our things are being displayed or played. But however, the monies don't seem to make it to the artists. So one of the suggestions that came from the last Indaba was that the intellectual property number for all artists should be the ID numbers, just as it's done at Home Affairs, where it's connected to that's your social security number, and that's what you use everywhere, and that's how you get identified. So we found that as artists, perhaps we should also choose that way, because what's happening is that the collecting societies, our monies just end up with them, and the people who work for that collecting society have got access to medical aids, have got access to money to get bonds, have got access to retirement annuities, and that's actually our money. So we have to unpack and see how we can change things. As always expressed, the Artists Indaba is a non-racial, non-political space. So all views are welcome, all races, all cultures are welcome. We just ask that people speak respectfully, and even when you disagree with points, can it be done in a way that's agreeable and polite and well-mannered, and so that we can find a way forward so that we are all winning. We are having network issues with some of the speakers this morning. It is rainy, and you know that rain network is when it's like this, but let me not get too juicy. Once again, thank you again for joining us. The minutes are available. For those who need the minutes, please do reach out, because we're trying to find ideas and ways in which we can confront these establishments and get our money. Artists can no longer die broke. I mean, every time an artist dies, it's time for collections and stuff, whereas people have actually been working. Oh, I'm so happy. All our guests are working. Jay, can I check? Because you had actually asked to be first. So can I? Oh, okay, we've lost her. I'll ask Abu Tsepo then to jump in, and we can start our section. Good morning, Abu Tsepo. Oh, you can introduce yourself, speakers, so that people can know who you are and what you do.
Asithokozise Sinsiki Mamiya nolotshisayo nguTshepo Machiyana uMkandla uThothobezana Sikhohlela samaGlari Rhabu ngilotshisa bonke abakwamoya sibonge nethudu leni sinike lona ukuthi size sikhulume nani sikhulumisane ngezindzaba lezi zamaciko so siyathokoza kakhulu sithi makwandre nalo lo mgidi wandre Mamiya. I don't know where to start, because you know the I want to make is really to bring us closer to what we have to appreciate. So the struggle of creatives and creative citizens across the world, it's a struggle that has been going on for centuries. In the 1920s, just after the World War I, we had the Harlem Renaissance, 1920s, 1930s, and these were Africans in the diaspora really coming together to ensure that they are able to preserve, but most importantly, promote their cultural, their traditions, and their lineage, basically, of being African. And this happens in Harlem in that period. That was an epoch on its own, and we know that we can attach names to this particular epoch. But what is important to understand is that for every epoch for struggle for liberation of the creative citizens, is that there was an enemy that needed to be confronted. So two things that continuously were at the center of leading any struggle for liberation, and especially for creatives, was always to identify the enemy, but number two was to also have a common purpose around why the struggles were waged. You would know that post that epoch, we would have had in the 1970s and 80s, Mafube Arts Commune, and we have Amandla Cultural Ensemble as a continuation of these struggles for the creative industry liberation, or really to confront the challenges that creative. You know that if particular reason to ensure that the enemy is defeated. And in this period, it was a period of oppression, and specifically speaking about the African continent this time around. And that on itself was an epoch, and we can still attach names to that and those struggles that were waged. Then we proceed, Cecily, to the 1990s, where the first gathering of creatives led by heads of states, the African Renaissance Symposium, took place here in South Africa, where again there was a march to ensure that the creative citizens are respected, not only respected, but also are placed to play their role in the post-apartheid period. I don't want to use concepts like democracy and so forth, because I don't think we've ever achieved that. So we've seen that as a generation today, we are not necessarily a special people that should not continue to struggle. These struggles have been waged way before us. I think the important question that we must then ask today is, who is the enemy? And number two, what is our common purpose to defeat the enemy? Because all sorts of other things that happen in the life of creative people are basically led from a particular regime or an agenda against the creatives themselves. So for us to be able and really deal with the source of our problems, we really have to understand who the enemy is. Number two, how do we develop or come with a common purpose that we will all rally behind to defeat the enemy? We can't be claiming easy victories of having contributed into a policy framework and so forth without necessarily understanding that that in itself does not change the fact that the enemy still exists. So we've got to be able to clearly understand, so that even when we claim victories, we know that we would have defeated the enemy. Now, I can argue and say to all of us in this platform, and those who are actually watching us outside of this platform, that the enemy has consistently been aware of our existence and continues to use facades, people who come to us and confuse us, that we've arrived, when in fact we have not even moved. Would know that 30 years later in this country, You have got generations of creatives who are saying the same thing, worried about the same matters, amongst which are the ones that you are talking about, uh, Ziggy, Bamia, about the issues of royalties. I mean, this is a dated issue. We can't be at this age, I mean, our generation be saying the same thing. What we need to then appreciate is that at the source of all of this, there's an enemy, and that enemy must be confronted, and that enemy must be defeated. And you can't do that having niceties, conversations. We've got to be able to organize. I'm speaking about movements. The Harlem Renaissance was a movement. Amandla Cultural Ensemble was a movement. Mafube Arts Commune was a movement. And therefore, it means for us we need to continue the movement. It may not be easy. It's never been easy because the enemy is funded, the enemy is given all sorts of support to ensure that it maintains the status quo. Now, if you ask me today, what is our role as this generation and what legacies do we want to leave? Where is it that our names are going to be called way before we are gone or after we are gone? It's when we would have done something similar to what all the movements have done, CCT. We've got to use these platforms, and I'm happy that you have started platforms like these because that is a response to the enemy. The enemy is very worried that there are people organized in this manner, and they're talking about themselves and how they need to be able to relieve themselves from the enemy. Now, I'm not going to be speaking about the nitty-gritties of our problems. I'm a crafter myself. I manufacture musical instruments. In my own country, I've never worked or even supported my own government over the years because my craft, despite the fact that it is renowned the world over, we've supplied these instruments throughout the continent. Yet in our own country, nothing of a sort is seen as a way to develop and take our country forward. And I think at the center of it is this element of undermining this very powerful
Okay, it
society
seems
of
like we got
creators.
technical issues, but you'll be back.
Yeah.
Sorry
So
about that, Seppo. Can I ask the speakers to please mute their mics? Can everyone mute their mics except for
Yes.
the speaker? Seppo, you can go ahead.
Oh,
thank you, Mami. So I want to put it to all of us here that we need to organize Mamiya beyond these platforms. We need to learn. We need to go back and learn how our forebears have done it because they succeeded in really creating movements that have lived beyond them. And today, if you go to Harlem, you would know that the generations after those that led those movements continue to spearhead those movements. Now, for me, in this platform, Mami, I requested to get an opportunity to speak because we have started the Creatives Congress movement, and intentionally so because we believe that the structural arrangements of how we gain power in this world have been defined, and therefore we've got no choice. We've got no choice outside of waging coups and stuff. The other people have got choices, but we don't have a choice but to play in that particular space. So as a Creative Congress movement, we've organized to actually contest elections, and that is the purpose why we want to actually exist. We want to get into those offices, we want to get into the parliament and actually challenge the current state of the legal framework within which we operate as creatives. Because at the center of everything, that's our problem. The policies aren't defined by us, the laws aren't defined by us. We're just recipients of something we know very well. It's not possible because we are in the practice, we are practitioners, we know very well what is good for us. But until we get to a point where it is us who are in charge of those processes, I don't think we'll ever get to a point, Mami, where we can be able to say, yes, we've made a dent, an indelible dent and a mark for generations to come. So I want to call on all of us to really go back to the source. Let's know what other creatives who came before us did. The opportunities you are creating for us, Mami, to speak, it's part and parcel of a process that must lead to defeating the enemy. I don't want to be making assumptions about who the enemy is, but there is an enemy. And there must be a common, purposeful, intentional process of a movement that defeats the enemy. And I think at the point we would have achieved a lot. And I don't want to go to really nitty-gritties, as I said. I can speak about the craft sector, from the beginning to the end. But for me, I do think that even today, the laws, the policies that are defining how this sector must operate are laws that are contrary to the intentions of what this big industry must achieve and this community of practice must achieve. So I will allow others to get into the nitty-gritties of policies, of disciplines, but I am urging all of us to use these platforms to start coordinating ourselves so that we can be able to also lead ourselves in platforms where others are leading us. So with those few words in the morning, siyathokoza Mami, siyathokoza kini nonke bakwamoya sithi makwande. Thank you very much.
Kamaku, thank you so much. A reminder to all the speakers to please mute your mics when the other speakers are speaking, because it's quite distracting when we have crackling and so please do mute your mics. I think someone needs to, is it you, Nomi?
No.
Okay, Jay had asked to speak first, so I think I'll let her go and then Nomsa can jump on and then Mabuti can jump on. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, everyone. And firstly, it's an absolute honor to be here. But let's get straight to the point. Our policies have failed us. Full stop. Our policies have just failed us. They need to be rewritten by us, for us, and for those who come after us. Because right now, creatives don't even, the younger generation that is coming after us, don't even realize that the policy has already failed. I must convey, firstly, apologies for Maharaj attorneys and Shah, a television producer previously, and runs Zenshaw, and Zenshaw protects what matters to you, like from your home, health, auto, healthcare, life care, and we've been speaking previously about medical aid. Both are joining the live, but they'd like to speak at the next panel discussion. They have a wealth of knowledge to pass on, and both individuals will surely share that knowledge in helping us to find solutions for the arts and culture sector. Paris Subraya, also watching, is an extraordinary artist. She paints like Picasso, if not even better. But here's the thing. She is capable of writing, but she cannot write. She creates and sings her own lyrics and is currently making a movie whilst being an artist at the same time. Now, because she is autistic, she cannot read or write. And due to her being autistic, she's denied the recognition and platforms that she deserves. She'd also make an excellent voiceover artist. I co-write her screenplay, capturing her vision word for word. Yet South Africa has no inclusive space to celebrate and support artists like her. We may say we have that for those that are disabled, but I'm telling you, I'm yet to see one for an autistic creative. She's brilliant, and I'll put my head on the block for that, for anyone to come into my creative space and to see the works of Paris and see what she is creating. Commission her to paint anything, and she will. Now, this needs to change, that there are creatives out there who have challenges, whatever they may be, that they were born with it. However, our platforms have not fully become inclusive. As for myself, I'm a playwright, and I've worked with Playhouse, been part of the Grahamstown National Arts Festival, and yet I still struggle to stage my plays. And I'm sure there's many others out there just like that. I've come to the point where I use whatever space I can and I stage them wherever I can. My next play is going to be staged at the Stella Sports Hub. Why? I did this very deliberate and intentional because our institutions are failing artists and we say sports, arts, and culture. So now I ticked the box. I'm going to go stage my play at Stella Sports Hub. I've also created a creative space at the Sports Hub where my doors are open to all artists. We are tired of gatekeepers and the unnecessary barriers. And I've strategically acquired a creative space so we could be classified under sports, arts, and culture. But, let's be honest, our minister would probably hand a rugby ball to the ballet dancer and say, let's see what you can do with it. And I'm unapologetic about saying that. Now, since COVID, the floods, and the unrest, KZN artists have been displaced. To say they are struggling, it's an understatement. One artist of very recent, I'll give you another story, very recent, participated in the Grahamstown National Arts Festival last year, recognized by a major bank, even received an award. Last week told me, please, I'm hungry, I don't even have food. How? How is that possible? Another, the owner of Cutting Edge Frames, that does another creator who does the framework for those who paint on canvas and be it photography. Her shop was looted. Today, she has received no assistance in searching for work. She doesn't have any work. Her shop is completely destroyed, doors closed, but the shop is there. And she's a creative. Murals have been painted on my walls by an incredibly talented art lecturer, but no one even knows his name. There are barely any galleries that will sell his work, or maybe we have too few galleries in this country. And that's just art galleries. And I'm a playwright, speaking of other artists whom I know. I find it very sad that only we as artists know the different types of arts that's out there and the different sectors, that dance is an art form, that one who paints on canvas is a different kind of artist. There's a performing artist. After the inaugural Artists Indaba meeting, I must share this with all of you. WhatsApp groups had started to form, and suddenly some closed door theaters started talking about hosting a conference for artists. A conference for what and for who? And I don't know if it's coincidence that it was after the inaugural one here that they suddenly said, we must have a conference for artists and call everybody here and let's talk. I'm an established artist with a space at Stella Sports Hub, where I focus on visual storytelling, brand management, and all things creative. Now, in my personal capacity as an artist, I will continue to represent KZN artists under my own banner and affiliate myself with Artists Indaba. And like we've been saying, a strong movement needs to be formed. And I'm very, very for that we form a strong movement and we stop being, it's not a divide and conquer. We must stay united. We need systemic change. And I support the proposal that artists should have an A in front of their ID number, whether it's their initial, whether it's AC to say we belong to arts and culture. Because I know someone recently said, being just stirring the pot, what if it's a musician, whatever. But yes, I do strongly believe that even our ID documents should have some sort of identification. Maybe AC, we belong to arts and culture or artists. Um, I wish we could receive a monthly social grant because let's be real, our work is seasonal. And with us, it's no work, no income, no security. Social media does not pay rent. It has, however, made social media actors into overnight celebrities. And this, by no means those that have actually gone and they've just become famous on social media, period. They are not even your real artists. More likes, more views, and suddenly you're just the face of the industry that you don't even represent. And that irks me. Whilst I'm happy for those that can make it work for them, but it irks me is that because I know the real artists who are struggling and can't get their work out, work that society needs to see and our country needs to see, work that will boost the economy, work that is meaningful and purposeful. We've got purpose and we're driven. Now, meanwhile, real artists will continue to struggle to eat. We should come together to meet a criteria in order to get a grant that one receives every month. But we, the artists, must have a say in this too, and let that too be added to the policy. I know it sounds like, hopes like snowballs. Is that ever going to happen? But I hope that we may leave a legacy behind that does happen, that there is a social grant, some sort of stipend that every artist has, where those that are identified as artists should receive this. Now, we were told during COVID that there was a grant for, there was grant during COVID, there was grant during the unrest and nothing. The money went on a long journey and we know this. I'm saying a monthly grant should be added to the budget for artists. And let's not forget the celebrities, those that show up to campaign for the same political parties that have ignored us for decades. And the truth is, we see them, but I don't know, are we accepting of it? We continue because it just seems it's like we've become immune to it, like crime. It's okay. Unless we say something or do something and be part of that change will happen. I've spoken to attorney Reshav Miraj in Gauteng, who's willing to help me unpack the legal aspects as we move forward. Charlotte, who is here today, is willing to discuss tax, insurance, and financial planning for artists at a minimum cost if need be. And I am tired of, paying more money to stage my play than I actually make. At the end of it all, when one does the books, I've made nothing, but I've paid for everything. And yet I'm the playwright, it is my production. Brand sponsors need to step up. Government policies are long overdue for change, and artists need to be the one rewriting them. And I'll be the first to say, send me. Now, there's little to no arts education in schools. A TikTok dance trend is not real dance. Social media, the virality, going viral on social media is not real theater. One misses the magic of the essence when you are in real theater because they are confused between what's happening on social media and think that's an art form. Society does not see us because the system continues to fail us. Our policies are outdated. It is time to rewrite them. And I'll close and leave you with the words of Nina Simone. An artist's duty is to reflect the times in which we live. And it is our duty right now to reflect the times that we live. These are difficult times. that we're living in as artists. And you know what? History will continue to celebrate the dead. Let's support living artists and fuel the future. Let's get to work and let's pay attention to our work that needs a lot more advertising. And hence, I say, brand, brands, big brands need to come on board because even when there's a play in a state theater, it is not well advertised. And my question is, why? Thank you for this opportunity today. And I look forward to listening to everyone that's here.
I'll just go ahead. I believe I'm as the next speaker. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here with all of you and to discuss art in general. I had thought it was going to be about theatre in specific today, but I think I want to start by saying, and to take from you, Jay, what you just ended with, an artist's duty is to reflect the times within we live. And this is very true. And this means that the time within which we live is the artist. And the artist should not detach themselves from the time within which we live. So I think it's very important for us as artists to understand that while we are the narrator, even as the narrator, we are part of this story. Why do I say that? I think as artists, we've separated ourselves from society. And we think that there is something called artist and something called society. They're separate things. And to me, they are not separate things. They are one and the same thing. What is happening in the world of artists is happening in the world of human beings in South Africa. What the artist is experiencing is being experienced by everybody in South Africa. When you say, I pay for everything in my production and I end up earning nothing, there are a majority of South Africans in this country who wake up just to work, who have enough to buy food to work. And so it's almost as if, as a people, we've forgotten that I make this art to perform it, but I also make this art to perform it to have a life, to have a livelihood. Just like the worker. The worker has forgotten that, no man, in fact, I didn't have this job to have this job. I have this job to take care of my children, to have a livelihood. So the experience of the artist is not a fault of the art industry, it's a fault. And when I say a fault, I mean like in an earthquake, a fault line that permeates South Africa as a whole. I would really love us, if we can, for the purposes of growth, when we want to say things like the policy is failing us, the institutions are failing us, I think it's very important to be able to say how. Which part of the policy is failing us? Why is that failing us in that way? And as I was under the impression we're talking about theatre today, I prepared my perspective from when I was general manager of Soweto Theatre. When I was general manager of Soweto Theatre, in the 5 years that I was there, the last year was hit by COVID, but in the years that I was there, attendance doubled from 25,000 to just under 50,000 people a year. And revenue also, in the first year, revenue increased by 60%. And every year after that, we reached all the targets, the financial targets, and exceeded them. How did we do that? The first thing that I know was of benefit at the Soweto Theatre was that we identified that there would be people that would always walk into the theatre and want to do something with the theatre. And these people, and it happens in many government departments, especially in the arts, where people come in and say, I want to do this. But there was no operational system in place to do what is supposed to be the outcome. Because when you have a theater, you've got to have these outcomes. Your outcomes are audience, your outcomes are revenue. There's also social cohesion, but you see, when you've got audience, social cohesion takes care of itself. So me and my team could see that there was a disconnect between where we were, and I liked when you said gatekeepers, because I was a gatekeeper. So I'm standing at the gate. People are coming to the gate. Why are they not walking in? And so I said, okay, yes, we do our operations, because when you're working with a team, you've got to make sure that you operationalize things. Working with a team, and you've got to make sure that everybody understands the operation of this thing. You can't just say, okay, whenever people walk in, then they must just come upstairs and then the whole team must gather and must listen to what they have to say, because you wouldn't get any of the other work done. Then we said every single Thursday is a pitch Thursday. Everybody walks in here, and we created a template, and we said, and so when people walked in on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we said, come on Thursday. And so we started creating a calendar. Every Thursday, people used to pitch. And producers came, and that's how I got audience. Because in the little thing, in the little form, and we didn't make it important for people to fill out the form. Because I said, what if somebody is not English? What if somebody can't write? I mean, we've got artists like that. And so we wouldn't force it. We'd say, no, just do what you can. If you can't do it. Anyways, the meeting was set. So people come to the meeting. In the meeting, we are there with our computers. We're filling in the blanks with the artist. What did that do for the theater? To introduce us to new audiences. Artists are doing things. They're putting on shows in their backyards. They're putting on shows in the community halls. I got audience like that. People are paying money to see shows in community halls. People are paying money to see shows in people's backyards. I got revenue from that. And my observation when I said, okay, if we're doing this as Soweto Theatre, I'm not saying that we didn't have any negative examples. While there are gatekeepers, there are also bad players. As artists, we must recognize even artists as bad players. There's one artist, we gave them venue. They were supposed to sell tickets. That's what they said they were going to do. They was going to sell tickets. Then when they saw that they were not making any ticket sales, then they just made the show free on their own accord. And that that's a form of sabotaging future artists. So, but we dealt with that. It was unfortunate. I ran into that. I looked like a terrible person, a terrible leader for my team, and then I got victimized, because obviously when you're a gatekeeper and now you are letting the gate to be open, everybody who quite enjoys just doing their jobs, not having gates being locked, then you become that. So there are bad players that almost deter administrators from who want to do their jobs from doing their jobs. But what was my observation? Why is it not every art center doing this? Number one, I was not afraid to make mistakes. And I knew that in the environment that I'm in, when I make mistakes, people are not going to be kind to me. I knew it. I had my job for 5 years. I delivered. I didn't miss a delivery. I don't have that job today. I don't have it. I haven't had a job in 5 years. I did my job. I reached every target. I was working for government. There's no reason I should not have my job. I don't have my job. But I knew that I'm going to make mistakes. The people that are the gatekeepers, when you make mistakes, they're going to be on you for those mistakes. The people that you are serving, when you're making mistakes, they don't want to understand that you're going to make mistakes. We're new leaders. we are in this thing. It's only been 30 years of freedom. There's nobody who's an expert here. We need to be far more forgiving and allow people to make mistakes. That's how development happens. You don't just wake up and walk. You crawl first. You fall over. We're going to have to learn to walk, because the people in these institutions, if they can just tick boxes, that means they're not making mistakes. You see how you're saying the celebrities always get picked. If I do a partnership with the soil or with Zoe Modicha, I know I'm going to tick every box. Audience will be there, people will buy tickets, social cohesion. I know I'm going to tick every box. So as a gatekeeper, I'll say, let me get Zoe Modicha. Zoe Modicha has money to pay for the venue. In fact, all famous artists paid for the venue when I was there. Not that it was supposed to be like that, because I still feel like even the famous artists are still at the beginning of their careers. But when it was coming to the partnerships, it was that Thursday. That's where we were getting the partnerships from. So people are afraid in their offices. They can't do their jobs. So they don't do their jobs. I want to also talk about the development problem that we're facing in South Africa as a whole. There's a book by James Ferguson called The Anti-Politics Machine, Development, Depoliticization, and Bureaucratic Power. And then there's another book by Arturo Escobar, Encountering Development, The Making and Unmaking of the Third World. Now, why do I speak about these authors? Development, there's a thing that happens in development where it's called a fetishism, where we imagine what development looks like. So, as newly liberated countries, we imagine this is what development looks like. So, for example, I'll give an example of Soweto Theatre. Every society that is progressing must have a theatre. That's like the thing that we say. We must have a theatre. And everybody agrees. We don't think about where are theatres built. But theatres are built in the cold countries. That's why they start in the UK. It's very cold. People want to go out inside. We say we want to have a theatre. It must be a building. And then the people will just come. We haven't thought about the environment, the context, what's happening here. And this, it doesn't mean Soweto Theatre being built is a failure. No. It just says we were not applying our minds when we were building a theatre. Then we build these theatres and we say, we don't have audience. But there's audience at the stadiums because South Africa's hot. People want to be outside. Nobody wants to go inside a theatre and watch a show. Then we started introducing alcohol to the theatre. Now because we need people inside the theatre. Now people are drinking inside the theatre. That's not a UK thing. That happens overseas, right? But now we've had to do it in our own environment because we need people to come to the theatre, and now they don't want to sit and not drink because in the outdoor venues they can't sit and drink. So in this environment, you are wanting to change behavior. And as somebody who loves behavioral economics, you can't change people's behavior. It's very hard to change behavior. It's better to build economics around what they're doing. So it's a theatre. One of the things that we did that was very successful is that we started having outdoor festivals at the theatre. A lot of festivals. And we got lots of numbers through that. We got all the festivals to come to Soweto Theatre because we had the facilities. So when we think about that, we must think in our context, what is going to work and how is it going to work? Then I'll go to the last part about the business of art. There was music, and I will take the journey of music. There was live music, and then there was live recorded music. When live recorded music came into play, there was a lot of pushback about live recorded music, and you had purists who didn't want live recorded music. They believed in live music, real music. And guess what? Technology won. Then there was live recorded music to digital music. Then they were the purist again. Ah, no. But guess what? Digital music won. Now we have AI and we have social media. What we need to be thinking is, how do I win with social media? I'll give you an example, or with AI. I'll give you an example of what people are doing in universities, some universities overseas, because there's all of this. Now people are wanting to buy softwares to track if you wrote your essay by AI. The advanced universities are not doing that. They're saying, write your essay with AI and then come to class and critique. What did the AI get wrong? How is the human important here? How is the human effective here? What value is the human adding, and focus on that value add of the human? Because you can see, once it became about digital music and then everybody's about the digital, then actually music is about dance now. That's the art form. It's no longer singing, it's dancing. That's the art form. But as a singer myself, I think about it and I say, how do I be in this space? Now I have the ability to incorporate AI or incorporate digital into my live performance to make it a better live performance. Or how do I work? Because we've moved so far to digital, and now we are just in festivals of DJs. People are kind of getting tired of festivals of DJs. They will be that fatigue, and there'll be a cycle. So I think as artists, you really have to think about yourself as a business. Just like an employee has to think about themselves as somebody who's coming to a workplace to make money, to have a better livelihood. If your job is only paying you to do the job, if your job is only paying you enough to pay for transport and to eat enough to be able to make it to work, you shouldn't be working in that job. Quit the job. Rather sit at home and don't do nothing. Because you're working to work. And the music, and us as creatives, we also need to think about that in that way, to say, as a business, am I just putting on the show to put on the show for me? Because then, once, I'll give you an example. The Red Theatre at Soweto Theatre is a 436-seater. This is a theatre that's supposed to make us the most money. Anybody who can fill a 436-seater is charging 200 Rand for a ticket. That means there's only 9,000 Rand or 90,000 Rand that can be made from that show. You've got to pay everybody that was part of your show. If everybody who's part of your show is getting paid by all the money that you're making at the door, you're not going to make the show. That's why a lot of theaters now are actually getting giving the big artists the venue. Because they know that if I charge you for venue, there's no money in it for you anymore. That's why the big artists stopped going to the 436-seaters. Now the 436-seaters are giving the venue to the artist because they know the money that the artist is going to make, they're not going to make it from paying me a door charge. So it also takes a discipline. If this is your livelihood and not a hobby, then if it's your livelihood, it must be your livelihood. If you're putting on a show to put on a show, that's not for your livelihood. Don't put on the show, because society will be missing the show. And then the other mechanisms that are part of the ecosystem of you putting on the show will start having to play ball in terms of making sure that you are there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really intriguing information. Guys, don't be shy. There's different disciplines on the panel, so you speak about your own discipline freely. There's no set themes for any of the Indabas. Karabo, can I hand over to you?
Thank you, thank you, and thank you, everyone. My apologies on coming in late. Internet has been giving me. Yeah, did I unmute? It's sorted. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, today's network for everybody is messing up, but we can hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, boy.
Oh, okay. My humble apologies. Yeah, also for being late. I'm not one of those. I always like an hour before, but yeah, I had to struggle with internet. So my name is Karabo. Yeah. My name is Karabo Mutijwani, the owner of Nanakweti Productions. I have also been in the music industry for over 30 years as a co-owner of Share Publishing, which 7 or 8 years ago, I sold my shares and decided to also resign.
Sure, the network monkeys are playing with us today. Apologies for that. Even all the other speakers are also struggling with their network. Mabiti, I'm adding you to the stage. Maybe you can jump on. Guys, we apologize for this. I am sorting it out. I am adding speakers to the stage, and hopefully their networks are going to be okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Can
Garabo,
you
we
see
got you
me?
back.
I can't see myself.
Yes.
This is correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me mute my
Yeah,
mic.
let me go into the issues quicker. I've been yeah. Oh, okay, all right. Can I continue?
Yes, Garab, you can continue.
All right. Yeah. So let me just jump into the issues before I get cut off again. Yeah. Thank you. So I've been dealing with a lot of organizations like Samro and Kapaso. And so the issues I was actually discussing with Tsiki yesterday was one of the issues that really pains me, and I felt maybe it's something that I could share at this platform with you guys. One is that I got to understand, I mean, obviously on how Samro runs and how Kapaso runs, because I deal with them daily, and these are the people that take care of the intellectual properties of the songwriters. So we always need to be able to separate an artist as a performing artist and the songwriter as a composer, author of the song. So these organizations are dealing with the composer, authors of the song, meaning any usage being used of this music, either on TV or radio or either on festivals, they get paid. To Samro and Kapaso, so that Kapaso and Samro can be able to pay to the rightful owners, which are the composers. And in this case, we're dealing with what I believe it's either.
Can we just ask the other speakers to turn off their mics while the speakers are on?
There's quite good people.
Sorry about that, Garabo. Sorry.
Thank you.
You can go ahead.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, so what we're dealing with here, and maybe firstly, without actually saying, there's bad in this organization. There's a lot of people within this organization that are doing their best, to try to make sure that everything works, and rightful people are getting paid accordingly. But also we're dealing with the systems that this organization are using, which are not up to scratch, or either there are a lot of errors that actually make sure that songwriters don't get paid what is due to them. So you find that this composers are now hiring people like us, meaning that they are losing a share of what they're supposed to be getting, so that we can be able to assist, in within it. So let me just make a simple example. So Samro will have what they call an interloan. An interloan is they are loaning these writers money, to buy equity. You know what I mean? So they're taking your money and they're buying these things, buildings, they're buying whatever it is that they're buying equity. And it really doesn't make sense for people who are not investing more money and making sure their system of paying these composers is actually works. At this time of digital era, the system's supposed to be works. That would be the first thing you want to do. You cannot go out in media and saying we've collected 100 and something million, but you cannot go to the media and say we have paid, you know what I mean, 90% of that money to the rightful owners. So you basically say, I'm collected money, but I'm not paying out money, which doesn't make sense, right? But then in within that, you're borrowing money of the same composers that you are not finding and make sure that they get their money, and you're buying equity. You're buying buildings. Why are you buying buildings? At this time of age, where some of us are working from home, everybody can still work from home. You know what I mean? COVID have taught us that everybody can work from home and be easily monitored. You're buying buildings that is not working because people are getting out, are not renting enough, and now you are at a loss, right? So we're talking about a building that was bought at around 180 million rand. So now because it's not working, you want to sell it at 90 million rand. Who's losing here? Same composers, right? That you can't even properly, pay accordingly. And then you want to find out also in terms of how involved is the board in terms of whatever is that they're buying, who's actually sourced out those people, because they're not putting out to the composer to say, hey guys, we have a tender, let's find out who it is. They're doing it within the space where they're not even talking to the composers for the composer to say yes or no. How do you make that such decisions? You know what I mean? In somebody else's money that are not even properly earning enough, right? And then if you go to the Capasso side, and I think Nomsa have been in few times been making calls to you and wanted to find out more why there are other issues. And I think we had lengthy conversation in those. And one thing that is happening at Capasso is that Capasso stands for Composer, Author, Publisher, right? But if you interact with them, they are more publisher based. They really don't care about the composers, right? So all these composers are now signing their rights to publishers. The publishers are now getting paid 100%. 100%. They will never engage with you as a composer. So you don't know what the publisher is getting paid. So you actually getting statement, actually most of them. I was actually having a meeting last time with one of the library production music client who basically says that the publisher said, no, when you sign with us, you're only going to get paid from Samro, because Samro do pay composers directly and publishers directly. Capasso doesn't. Pays publishers 100%. So you don't know what you're getting paid. If it's true reflection of what they actually got paid. Now you go into Capasso and saying, Capasso, let me just check. I mean, I know my publisher got paid the amount. What is that they'll be paid? Then Capasso says, no, we can't share that. It's confidential information. Confidential information of who? Because that's my work. That's my information that I supplied to the publisher. I should be having the right to that information. Now I can't have that right to information. What do you then do as a composer? If I'm struggling with it, being in the industry for over 30 years, just think about your normal Maskandi, person somewhere. Think about your normal, quite a young guy somewhere. You know what I mean? Who doesn't even know that you collect 100%? So this publisher is collecting 100%. He's basically saying, no, the agreement you signed, you'll get your money from, from Samro only. He's not, but in the contract, he's basically saying that I'll pay you January to June, 90 days after. You know what I mean? What is that is paying January to June? It's mechanical royalties, which is supposed to be coming from Capasso. You know what I mean? And then you then think of, if 3 years later you are aware of that, coming back, these organizations are now basically saying,
Yo, Karabo's network is messing with the juice because this is quite explosive information. Karabo, I don't know if you can log off and log on again because you've frozen. But the fact that our monies, there's transparency, we can't see what the publishers and the collecting societies are collecting, but it's actually our money is quite deep. So I'm hoping Karabo will be able to come off and on again.
If I can get in there, from what Karabo was saying, yes, Samro, if we remember correctly, they even went into a deal to open another Samro in the UAE. As artists and as composers, what we are supposed to be saying, in my view, right now, is COVID has shown us that we don't need to go into offices. We can work from home. Many offices don't have offices anymore. And one of the major costs coming from our earnings is paying for offices. So he's saying buying buildings. There's no need for Samro employees to have a building. There's really no need for them to have a building. Those Samro workers can actually be working from home. So when and that's admin. So in Capasso and Samro, they say they've got they do their administration. So so from their earnings, they'll say we have a rate of 15% or 20% or 10%. I know Capasso is trying to work their way down to under 15%, but basically they're saying from the money that we collect, this is the money that we use for administration. So they're trying to get that rate down. Then, so let's take out that 15%, or let's say 20%. So let's say 100 Rand, we take away 20%, that's to pay for operations. So now there's 80 Rand left. Then they have a collections rate, right? What rate are they collecting and distributing at? So the distribution rate, how much of that money is actually reaching the composer? So that's the rate that we want to be 100%, but it's not 100% because of the some people notify their works incorrectly. Some people don't notify their works. So it's either they can't match the work to a composer, or in both cases, they can't match the work to the composer, right? So if you didn't notify, they can't match it to you, or if you didn't notify correctly, then there's a mismatch there. So let's say their distribution rate is 70%. There's still 30% that is not being distributed. That's usually what they call undock, that big money called undock. That money, what they do is they distribute it via market share. So let's say, so what market share means, it means of the money that we knew who to give it to, we're going to distribute it by that market ratio. So let's say Sony got 20% of the money, Universal got 20% of the money, another label, let's say Casper Neovesta's Family Tree got 10% of that money. Then the rest is like little composers that got 0.01% that money, whatever. Then they say they just redistributed per market share. That redistribution is illegal. They're giving money that doesn't belong to those people to those people. It's not their money, because we know it's not their money because it didn't match. So that money doesn't go to, it goes as a redistribution. That's the fraud that's happening. And it's a legal fraud because these are member societies and the members decide what happens. And so when you're a member of Samro and they say there's 100 million that we were not able to distribute because it's undock or mismatch or whatever, then all of those people who I have no claim on that money are the people who decide what must happen with that money. And what they decide is that that money must be redistributed. What should happen with that money is that it should just go into a suspense account, an interest earning suspense account. And it should just sit there until the rightful people come and own it, come and take that money. But now the members of Samro don't want to see an amount of money that didn't get distributed growing and growing and growing and growing. Also, Samro and Capasso don't want that number to grow every year, because when government comes to them and says, how much is undock? They don't want to say 6 billion. Because the government won't understand that, no, we've been holding this money in a suspense account for 15 years. It's all the people that haven't claimed, that we don't know where they are, but we know the music and they can go and look for their money. So what instead happens is that they hold this money for 3 years only. And then at the end of the 3 years, so every year there's a distribution by market share. That's the money. So year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4, they distribute year 1 to the wrongful owners, so that that money doesn't add up. So as members of these organizations, what we should educate ourselves on is to say, right, Samro and Capasso, first of all, why do you need offices? You don't need offices to do digital work. It's digital work, this work. Anybody can work from home with internet. It's digital work. Maybe you might need a small office. This is an office that's maybe 30,000 Rand rent a month, so that you can hold meetings. So it's it's an office with a meeting room. And then you might want to have your cybersecurity team in one place so that they can make sure that while Nomsa's sitting at home, she's not getting clever with the royalties. Because somehow the way that the royalties have been stolen is Nomsa's working on the letter M, maybe. I'm just making an example. Nomsa's working on letter M. And she sees that actually Mzwake Mbuli has never been a member. Every year, his money goes into the distribution because he produces music long ago, never became a member. Then, Mina, I work at Samro, I call a publisher friend of mine. I say, publisher friend, register notify these works. Because Mzwake Mbuli is not collecting this money. And as long as I don't say anything to Mzwake Mbuli, as long as my publisher just comes and notifies the work, all of that money is just going to go to that publisher, and then they share that money. Because I'm getting clever, I need to work at Samro, I can see who's not collecting, who's collecting. So we do need a strong security. But, and in addition to that, perhaps we need to have a legislation that says any collecting society that is distributing less than 80%, the Mnet, the SABC, the whatever, the Netflix, they don't have to, the MTN, because a lot of the money comes from MTN, they don't have to pay the Samro. So that there's something that's forcing Samro to actually match the works. Obviously they are driven to collect money because that's how they get their bonuses, that's how they get paid. So they're motivated to collect the money, but nothing's motivating them to actually pay out the money. Thank you.
Karabo, you were busy submitting. You can continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Nomsa. I wish I had from the beginning what Nomsa was saying because it's very interesting. Just to also add, on the Samro issues, is the undock, right? So we know that there was money stolen on the Dubai issue. Nobody got arrested, right? That case never been resolved. So it's literally the money lost, and everybody's not doing anything about it. So we basically open the door for crime. We're saying, guys, it's an open door, come and steal, right? Now you have a second one on the undock. Millions and millions of money, over 30 million. Got paid. Get paid to who? To the same board members. You know what I mean? So you're talking about the big publishers, like big international companies. They actually claim what is not theirs, and they got paid. And the same people are in the board making decisions. So then you ask yourself, if this is a case, it's open and is investigated, how do you then not have suspended these people? They're still running, they're still there. You're not suspended them, but they're part of this. You're not suspending them. You're now actually investigating. Who you investigate? Because all the report of investigation goes back to the same people. How that's supposed?
Gosh, Karabo, you're hanging again. There. So, Karabo, can I ask a question just for clarity? Are you saying that of the money that was stolen and lost in Dubai, the people who were involved in the losing of that money, nobody was arrested? And then are you saying that the board members that were involved in and implicated in that also still work on the board at Samro, and that this case is being investigated, but it's being investigated internally by the same board members that lost the money? Is that what you're saying?
So there's two cases. So the Dubai one, the board was dismissed, right? The whole board was dismissed. You know what I mean? Yours, Bongile, the latest Bongile, Sis Bongile, and all those, the Brahostics Mabuse, they were all dismissed, right? Okay, guys, I'm gonna apologize for this back and forth. So the new issue is basically the undock, where people are sitting down and, right, and this board is still there. It's not suspended. None of them are suspended. You know what I mean? So now you have the board. This is not so cool. Yeah. Yeah, sorry guys. So you have the board and you have committee. I think they call it social ethic committee. That same board members are part of that. So then you ask yourself, how do you investigate yourself? You know what I mean? Because you give information to the same people to protect themselves. You firstly needed to suspend them, right? So you can deal with this thing privately and find information so that when you serve them, get them arrested. You know what I mean? They say people get them arrested because now it becomes easy for anybody to go on to be a board member of any organization because they never get arrested. All they have to do is just to resign and you get away with that money. You know what I mean? People need to get arrested so that we can set the example. You know what I mean? This company need to be, the money need to be, got back from, the account need to be suspended so that until somebody recover that money. It's very easy. You know exactly where the money went to because you supply statement and you know that money is not theirs. You know what I mean? So you literally have paid into the account and you know that these people have claimed. So you have evidence of them claiming and you know exactly what they actually claimed and paid for and you know it was illegal and you're not suspending them and you're still allowing them to be part of the board making decisions on our behalf. That's why they can actually do inter-account a loan account where they borrow themselves the money and do whatever they want with it. It's because these are the same people. Seriously, it's a serious issue. It doesn't make sense. You're sitting down with the millions of millions that you're saying is undoc. You're not paying the rightful people, and they're still also stealing from it, and you're still also using the money wrongfully to do other things without the permission of the original owners who are the composers. We need a petition. All of us need to do a petition. Yeah. You can go.
Can I say that here's the challenge with what you're saying, Karabo. Undoc doesn't belong to anybody who is a member of Samro. Because if you're a member, you're getting your money. You're notifying your works, you're getting your money. Undoc means undocumented. Means that there's no matching of the work, that is the earnings from the work with the person who made the work. So if you were to look at it like a triangle, there's the work and the person who made the work and the earnings. So the earnings are going to the work, but the work is not going to the person who made it. So it sits in an undoc file.
No, it's not the case.
So
it's not the case. So most of the money. Yeah.
Can I finish?
Do you want me to? Oh, okay, sure.
So now you have undocumented works. Now, then you have undocumented works where they just can't identify the work. But these are all works that don't belong to anybody who's a member. Then now,
can I ask other speakers to please turn off their mics? Otherwise, I want to remove you from the stage. Please turn off the mics so that we can. And can we also try not to disturb the speaker? Nombi, can you allow Karabo to finish his points? But you can finish the point now, and then Karabo can finish his presentation.
Okay, Mabiti, your mic is on. So now what happens is that the members of Samro, in majority, the record labels. Yes, they are composers members, but the majority, the market share, the largest, if you could say the majority, it's record labels. Then you've got the board. So this money doesn't belong to the record labels, but they want this money. The board makes a mistake, 30 million rand mistake. The people who have the resources and the ability to hold the board accountable want to have their fingers on this money called undoc, which is not their money, it's free money. And in undoc, there's 100 million sitting in there. So the people with the bargaining power in this power relationship have no pressure to put the board members, make the board members accountable. They say, okay, you guys made a mess, but in the next distribution, the market share, the undock that is now up, that is now prescribed. Remember, after 3 years, the money prescribes. So the person who made the work, they say, it's not real law actually, they say you are no longer entitled to that work. So the work prescribes because you didn't claim it, it didn't match. There's 100 million or 300 million sitting in that account. For Sony, who has 30% of market share, they would much rather get 100 million in their bank account than argue with a board over 30 million.
Garabo, you can
Yeah.
continue and then unpack it for us.
Yeah, so just to rectify what Namsa's saying, there might be money maybe not belonging to, but most of the money on Undock belongs to the members. And I'm saying this because I'm working on Undock as I'm speaking to you now. And the lot of works that I'm taking out of there are from my clients. You know, it's just that the name of the song, if I name Propel OVE, you know what I mean? Or, you know, instead of the work of Casper written in the real name of Casper, which is some works with their real name based on your identity. They written Casper in your vest. So the system, even though you have notified yourself and say, I'm so and AKA so, the system doesn't identify that and actually put that match into the song. I was also doing, looking at a song by Big Zulu, Maleningi. You have that song 8 times on the system with different work numbers. It's an Undock. Who doesn't know that song belongs to Big Zulu? So it's probably 70 or not 80% of those works are for members. They're not matching because, you know, automatically the system is not good enough to be able to match those works. I'm telling you, I mean, at share, we probably would get about close to even 100. So everybody will stop working. We'll all look at the Undock and we'll get a lot of. So Undock, its money belongs to the members. Unless you're not a member and it will sit there, or your co-owner will receive that money, you won't receive your share. But most of Undock, you know, I'll share with you some of the things, Nomsa, if you can send me your email, so that you can see most of these things are works belongs to the members. So imagine a normal Maskandi guy who probably would even know how to get to portal to do this. He's probably having that money sitting down there. So he's not going to earn that money. 3 years later, that money is actually taken. It's not stolen. That money is yet taken and put it back into the pot. So let's say in this period, they're paying at R1.20 for each usage of a song. You know what I mean? And we're not smart enough to be able to take what we're talking about. Capasso deals more TV stuff, right? You know, Samro still also collect the TV stuff of performance when Capasso collecting on a copy of a copy. If you actually look at the two, you'll say, you understand that Samro pays per second and Capasso pays per 30 seconds. So if you get statement from Capasso, you can actually literally look at that and actually compare to what you're earning from Samro. So on Capasso, you have 30 seconds, 30 seconds. So you look at that and saying in Samro will have 30 seconds per second I'll be paid. At Capasso will be paid per 30 seconds. And compare the usages, and you'll be able to figure out that I'm losing the money where. Then you can challenge neither one of them, because one of their problem or issues is that they don't like working together. You know what I mean? And we shouldn't be in this time and age where organizations that actually doing the work on behalf of the composer are still having that issue of working together. They receive the same metadata from the same broadcaster. It doesn't make sense why none of them, when they pay you in a statement, it doesn't show that. You know, the other one shows that usage, the other one doesn't show the usage, but they receive metadata. You know what I mean? Seriously, there's a big issue here. And the other thing that I mentioned even the last time, I said, this organization, they're working with one song. So if you look at Sampra, where they're dealing with natal time, neighboring rights, they're dealing with the same song. The difference is that with Sampra, they're paying the performers. They're paying the person who was in the studio composing the song, playing a piano. You know, when Sampra is dealing with someone who composed the song. The other one deals with people who performed, who was the backing singers. They didn't write the song, but they performed when their song was created. It's the same song, same metadata, right? Why are we not having a system that, like, internationally they're already doing that? I mean, I shared with the CEO of Samro, that, they can actually literally have one company that actually takes all this metadata from all of them and join this metadata into one. So if you're IRC code, which works well with Sambra, that IRC code will be at Samro and Capasso. So if I'm dealing with Casper, I know Casper is performing, he didn't write the song. He will get the composer performance royalty from Samro, get mechanical royalty from Capasso, and get needle time from Sambra. But if you're dealing with one metadata, that metadata is correct. There shouldn't be an issue where the songs appear 20 times with a different work numbers. It doesn't make sense to have Imaliningi 6 or 7 times on the system like it's a different song. And it's sitting down on Andog. Who doesn't know Imaliningi, like, really, even if you don't like music? It really doesn't make sense. So this man is sitting down on Andog. I'm talking to one of the composers of the music of that particular song, and literally he didn't know until I picked it up and say, hey, look at this. And luckily enough, I can have conversation with most of the board. Actually, I had very unpleasant conversation yesterday with Proverb, because I just couldn't. I was trying to figure out what was your point of being in that board. You know what I mean? What changes you guys have done? You know what I mean? You have been coming from a ground as a hip hop, and you understand what these people are going through, how much they're suffering. You know what I mean? What changes are we bringing in when we rush into the board? Are we there to be paid, or are we there to really saying we're speaking for you? He's young. He should be able to put input that actually knows what these guys are feeling on the ground. You know what I mean? And one of the other issues is that Samra kind of like have this thing of saying to us that the people with knowledge and understanding of the missing are the big companies, CEOs, or general managers. We need that change to happen. We need to remove those people. They're making wrong decisions. They don't care about their thing. They're representing international. They really don't care. You know what I mean? You go to the portal, and one of the example, I'm sitting down with the people who designed the portal at Samro, and I appreciate that moment, because hence I said that there's people in within that organization really, really want to listen, really, really want to make the changes. And I was questioning things like, you don't have a genres. We don't have South African genres on those systems. In the portal, you go in the portal, you don't have South African genres. You are forced to say jazz, even though you're not doing jazz. You don't have African instruments. I mean, those things happened long before. In Asian, we have always been using those instruments. They are not there on the system. So in the portal, you got to choose a guitar, even though you're not using guitar, you're using imbira, or you're using something else, or you use Korean, or you're using Lesiba from Lesotho. You can't find those things on the system, but they've been there. And understood when they explained to me to say, the system is more based on Europe, right? So Europeans are saying, if you add those genres or you add those instruments, we cannot be digesting the same data into our international system. Why are we listening to them? Why are we taking what they're saying? Why can't we actually say to them, unfortunately from Africa, this is what we use. You need to be able to make amendment to the system to allow those to be there. So it's literally deleting our history. That's what you're doing. You're deleting our history. You make us we don't exist in your eyes. So we must be able to say violin, piano, you know what I mean, guitar. We cannot say anything else. So those are kind of things that I'm saying. At the moment, I'm actually asking. We spoke about this, I think, yesterday. Let's find a way to do petition, and we need to run the petition as quick as possible. We need to dismiss this board of Samro. We need to have them suspended. You know what I mean? Everybody must take liability. So even Proverbs saying that he left, he resigned, whatever it is the case, he was part of those decisions. You know what I mean? Everybody must be held accountable. You know what I mean? So that we can take this seriously, and people need to start being arrested. When I was at NORM, which is a NORM created Capasso, we founded Capasso and MPSA, right? There was someone who stole the money within, the workers at Samro. And that person was arrested. We make sure of it. And that person, pension fund was taken from him to repay the money that was stolen. You know what I mean? Why are we not implementing the same thing at Samro? Why is it so hard? It's because the people who are making decisions are saying that you must give these people amnesty. How do you give people who keep on stealing amnesty? You know what I mean? This is CFO deciding or making a decision at Samro saying that, guys, we need to give these people amnesty. So you must give them amnesty. They must still work at that. They must keep on doing it and stealing it. So they are protected. You know,
I need you to
seriously,
go
we
back
need
a
to,
bit.
Norma, we need to do something about it.
Garabo,
Yeah.
I need you to go back a bit because you got just derailed a little bit there. Are you saying that the people in the board now, there was money stolen, and that same board is still in there and no one has been held accountable, and that same board that's involved are the ones, so there's no like independent investigation? So the people stealing are the ones investigating themselves. And are you saying that people have been taking money from Andoc? And if that's the case, then does that not mean that musicians and the members must then open a case against these people who are stealing the money, besides the fact that the board members should be dismantled, the current board? Please unpack that for us.
Yeah. So the apparently there's the Hawks are also involved. So the case has been open. But what I'm saying is that the social ethic committee that is actually there, organized by Samro, is supposed to be independent, but it's actually involved in the same board members. So that is a problem right there, because whatever investigated and the findings are investigated, they know about it. So it's easier for someone else who's involved or who's told to actually take that information, take to the lawyers and play around with it and protect themselves. They should be all suspended. It's as simple as that.
Your network is
hold-
killing us. Wait, no, me. Your network is killing us. Karabo, when it's settled, please can you unpack what's happening? We do have other speakers, guys. We don't want a back and forth. Please can we be fair with the mic? Karabo, is your is your network settled? Because I know you've been in this industry for many years, so you know exactly what you're talking about. So we need to understand it, because we are the impacted ones who are not getting our royalties. But what you're saying is that there are people dipping in to these funds that we have no access to and making decisions without our knowledge. So I just need to understand that.
Yeah, it is the case. And I'm saying that the same people who are involved, most of them are the board members, are the people who the major publishing companies who are involved. You know what I mean? According to what we all know now. You know what I mean? These are the people who have access to the undoc, files, and they can actually, sit down and claim these things. And the issue here that I'm trying to say, if these people have been, someone knows who they should all be suspended, right? Because you cannot investigate the same people who actually played part on stealing. You know what I mean? So the ethic committee that Samro have put together, it actually involved the same board members that they're actually allegedly stole from the undoc. It doesn't make sense, So they're investigating themselves. That's literally what it is.
That is so deep. That is so deep, and I think that's something that musicians need to understand. Garabo, have you finished your presentation, and can we move on to the next speaker?
Yes, please, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Mabiti, are you there? Are you able to speak, Mabiti? Or Aisome? Hi, Aisome. Thank you so much for joining the Indaba. We are ready for you.
Hi, Assistant Sigi. Hi to all your speakers. Apologies for being late. Time zone things. Yeah, thank you for the invite to speak. It really is an honor, Assistant Sigi. I sent you a voice note about promoting African art internationally, and why I brought this up is because, firstly, I've seen that there's a huge demand for all sorts of African arts at the moment, and there are people who are utilizing these opportunities internationally. However, I don't see South Africans participating in this space and effectively like getting the funding that all other artists are getting, and collaborative initiatives as well that all other artists in Africa actually have access to. And then, now, having listened to just what Karabo was saying now a little bit ago, and the conversation that's been going on, I'm starting to kind of understand why access to these opportunities hasn't been made available. Now, I've then also accessed a report. If you don't mind, if I can read from the report, do you mind? I've accessed a report from it's called Unveiling a New Identity Through Art, and it's a report about 1 to 54 Contemporary Art Fair, which is run by a Tauria El Glau. Please forgive me for butchering names. If you need the links to all of these, I will send it to you. Now, this report says that in recent years, the African art market has gone through a remarkable transformation, emerging as a vibrant and dynamic sector that attracts both international and continental collectors. For the record, this is a 2024. 1 second, sorry. Sorry about that. It's my other alarm. This report was written in 2024 in April last year, right? And it's the next part is cultural richness and diversity within the contemporary African art market. It is challenging to define one single African aesthetic. We are talking about 54 different countries after all. The continent covers over 800 languages, and creative influences extended beyond Africa exist within an abundance of sensibilities, artistic and historical experiences, and so on. This is exactly the draw of African art. Its rich tapestry of cultures and artistic expressions, from traditional sculptures and textiles to avant-garde installations and digital artworks. The continent heritage is reflected in an incredible kaleidoscope of narratives and perspectives. When we're talking about collectors, we are drawn to authenticity of African art by offering a window into the sometimes complicated history of the continent. Contemporary art, African art, is rapidly changing people's perceptions and simultaneously unveiling a new identity. I'll pause on that point for now. And why I found that to be important for us as Africans is for us to take charge of this narrative and for once be the ones who actually direct where the narrative is going. Particularly also because of what's happened in Hollywood and how the entertainment industry there has like kind of gotten a gap since there's been the whole hip hop, you know, stuff that's been going on with Puff Daddy and what. So there's a gap when you see, like for Tyler and them, the Amapiano music and the impact Amapiano is having internationally. But we're not controlling the narrative. And because we're not controlling the narrative, we're not able to promote ourselves effectively, so to speak. But there is hope. Now, they say for market growth potential and trends among wealthy buyers, this is the part that caught me about this report. Driven by the increasing global interest and demand, the African art market has witnessed significant growth over the last few years. Notably, 1 to 54 Contemporary African Art Fair has observed a remarkable 20 to 25% increase in visitors since its pre-pandemic fairs, highlighting the enthusiasm people have for African artists. Artists have shown incredible untapped potential. And then they go on to name some of the artists that were there at the fair for last year. I haven't seen not one South African artist involved in this. So I went on to I'll pause from the report for a minute. I then went on to look to think about, because you did speak about the fact that we have a problem with funding as artists. I'm not an artist, by the way. I prefer to organize events than to be an artist. So yeah, and we are part of the Commonwealth, and I think we need to utilize the tools that we do have at our disposal and utilize those to fund ourselves until we get to where we need to go and do whatever we need to do. So I found quite a few what you call this, a kind of funding sites that people can access, artists can access, and try and see where you can land as an artist, of which I found within now the Commonwealth would some of them are African Art Hub. The vision is to establish Pan-African hub for talented African artists from the diaspora and Africa to present work internationally, reinventing the relationship between African artists and collectors. They offer a 3-year contract, but you submit your work, obviously, and you go through a whole application process. There is an application form on the site. You follow the instructions there. They help with promotion, marketing, application for international grants. With this one, you'd have to be very careful should you do apply for it, because they are with representation and sales, inventory, and account management. Please question the inventory and account management should you apply for this grant. And image management, legal assistance. The legal assistance is from a sister company to this particular platform. So again, please do research on such so that you can protect yourself as an artist. And then, yeah, that's African Arts Hub. And then there's African Arts Trust funding, Delphina Foundation, Gasworks. That is a Commonwealth funding type of funding there. You can go and read through the details. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to all these fundings that are available, and what I'd like to hear from the panel moving forward is how we can make these things more accessible to artists, and particularly to artists who can embody us as an African people and carry our stories with integrity, so to speak. There's also the Commonwealth Arts and Crafts Award, the Arts of Change Prize. There's a residence at TAH, the Art House of Royal, and it's from the Royal Overseers League. There's the Arts Council of England. The Arts Council of England always has what you call this, different funding opportunities that they post constantly. There's ArtQuest, Venial Communal Wealth, Arts and Crafts Award. This one caught my eye because it's for 22 to 35-year-olds. It isn't a long kind of residency. I think this one is the one that's 3 months, but it's very beneficial for an artist within that age group to find their feet in any way that you'd want to find yourself. And then there's the Art Makers of International Residency for artists with Commonwealth or former Commonwealth countries. This one is partly funded by the EU. And then because I'm based here, I have access to other funds like National Lottery funding, and any South African who is based in the UK as a resident has access to the same funding from things like the National Lottery, Paul Himlin Foundation, Esme, Fairburn, Garfield Western, Department of Digital Culture and Sports, obviously, and then Comic Relief and Government Art Collection. Government Art Collection, I also recommend that people apply and send their submissions through to the Government Art Collection section as well. Another thing that I think we need to start looking at promoting more is our books in international libraries. And for this one, I'm willing to run around and do the actual work. If anybody wants me to assist or be part of um, helping them push their books out there. It's basically putting proposals together and submitting them to libraries, and then libraries choose whether your book would be relevant and whether they can push your book through the library. We don't have narratives that push us, who we really are as Africans, because internationally, if you ask them what do you think, when you think about Africa, what do you think, they'll tell you they think 12 years a slave. And this is the narrative that I hope we can dismantle moving forward. Yeah. Yeah, I can't talk too much, but yes, let me close my mic for now. You can ask questions if you need to. I won't be going anywhere. Thanks, Nsidi.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks,
And
Asome. There's been a request that you make this list of funders available. So if you can cut and paste for us, and then we'll put it in the Artists Indaba WhatsApp group, and anyone else can reach out whichever way that they see fit. If you can also, at the moment, if you can cut and paste into the private chat, I'm able to cut and paste and put it on the screen. That might be helpful for people. So I know it was getting a bit heated there for a second, and Abu
definitely.
Tsapo made a suggestion that people can respond to what has been said. So Abu Tsapo, I'm going to hand the mic to you first, because we're struggling with our other speaker, Mabiti. We're having issues with your network. But Abu Tsapo, do you want to respond to some of the stuff that's said? And then Jay, and then Nomi, and then back to Karabo. Abu Tsapo? You need to unmute your mic, Mr. Mashiane.
Shall I continue if Mr. Mashiane is busy and he can?
Yes, you may.
Some very valid points that were raised, and Karabo, wow, I think it's been like headline news for me with everything that you've been saying, and not that I haven't heard it before, but the reality is we need to make it the headline news of certain aspects and how it is dealt with, and find the solution to those problems for musicians. Another is that we've not touched on, it's been Human Rights Month, and nothing much has been done on the mental health care or the injustices of artists this month. Whilst I heard one or two things, but I can tell you one or two things far away from me is nothing much. Because here in KZN and right here in Durban, where I'm very active, there was nothing done for artists for their mental health care, putting attention on that. Nothing was mentioned about the injustices to artists in a month like Human Rights Month. The other is, for the promoting of books, Durban held the title of the City of Literature under the banner of UNESCO for so many years. We didn't do much there either. And we have many writers. I'd like to do this and raise an awareness for who's reading the unpublished works, because there are many writers whose works have not been published. So what about the unpublished? Because most often writers are publishing their books themselves. And, our funding method here, especially, even whether be it theater or wherever, needs to have we have two options, option 1 and option 2 for funding. Option 1 is online, option 2 is online. So what happens to those with no money, no data or Wi-Fi, or can't access themselves to that? How can they get their application done? Do you keep, worrying the third person or knocking at the door until you're an irritation? But as an artist, and I speak for the ones that are not here and the artists that today have no voice. I'm saying this on their behalf, that yes, and I do agree with Karabo about the instruments. We are deleting a lot in history, not just instruments, the language and many other things that are being deleted. I hope that as we get into the next month's discussion, that those who hear us will come forward and be part of the change that we want to see, because we are trying to be part of the solution. We're not being part of the problem, we're highlighting the problem, but we certainly are being part of the solution that we want to see. So yeah, I think my next one that I'm going to make a big noise about is come and read. I'm going to host a literature festival and say, come and buy all the unpublished work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Agutsepo, some feedback on your end as we're starting to conclude.
No, thanks very much, and maybe let me thank everyone who's made an input. I think this is quite empowering, and I think I just want to raise a few things, one or two. Sitting here and listening to all the eloquent speakers here, people who know what they're talking about, Mamiya. The question I'm asking myself is, are we in a struggle, right? Are we in a struggle? And if we are we aware that we are in a struggle? Because sometimes we may not be aware that we're in a struggle, And if indeed we can confirm that that we are in a struggle, then the question is, what are we doing about it? I'm listening to Sis Maishome Putkarabo, Sis Jayashri, sorry, and Sis
Jay
Noms.
is fine.
Yeah, and Sis Noms. And I think, part of our problems is that we want to deal with these matters within a system that we know does not work, and we sometimes look like clowns, really, to be honest, because you want to deal with matters that have got nothing to do with the system, but you want to use the system, right? So Karabo says, no, those people must, there must be a petition, I mean, if somebody has done wrong, has stolen money that belongs to the poor, why do we have to follow a system? Because I think for me, we're becoming too, systematic ourselves dealing with these matters, The attitude of unshackling ourselves from our own unfortunate situations is not going to take a cup of tea. Thanks for drinking that a cup of tea approach. We need to we need to be real. We need to be on the ground. We need to tell the people. I mean, the things that are being said here about poor musicians, Mami, it's for me something that can't take a boardroom approach. Wanting to speak and use some systems that people know very well, that those systems are deliberately being undermined. The laws have been broken here, and yet we want to use the law to deal with these matters. I think for me, it's totally awkward. And for all of us, we must then begin to say, now that we've got platforms like these, now that we know what we know, and we continue to struggle in the journey of unshackling ourselves, what kind of motive forces do we need? I mean, who do we need to come together so that we can be able to create this kind of impactful movement? Some of these things don't take a nice conversation. There are many institutions, where what Karabo is saying, this kind of behavior is happening. Many institutions, and I don't want to mention them by names, but we know them. We've got people who are sitting in boards, deliberately there, intentionally stealing money that is intended for the poor. They just do it in such a manner that it's not even, causing them any sleepless nights, So we've got to be able to say, how do we necessarily be intentional in dealing with this broad kind of situation we're facing? And I think, Karabo, the petition way for me is fine, but I think it's also systematic. People need to be really confronted personally in their individual capacities and collective capacities in the boards. So that's what needs to happen. So just to close, Nomsa asked a question, what in the policies and what in the laws is not working? Now, you see, selective, if you address matters selectively, as if the entire law makes sense, you're not going to solve the problem. The problem of the creatives in this country is basically historic. It has got everything to do with oppressing a people's culture, a people's traditions, a people's language, and a people's survival. So if now we're going to be selective in looking at what works and what does not, we will basically be also be falling in the same trap, right? So we need to be able to acknowledge the fact that we are from a historic disadvantage, and therefore to deal with that, we're not going to be able to look at laws selectively, looking at which section of the law. If the law does not work, any section of the law does not work, the law will never work. Simple as that. So we can't be selective in our approach. So in closing, Ntsiki, one would like to thank all the presenters. Really, I'm really empowered. I've taken notes here. Since my family, we need those networks. Thanks for making the call and be here. And I think for us, as we said, some of us who have been running this movement, the Creatives Congress movement, since 2019, we're not going back. We're forging ahead because we think we're a generation that must also make an impact. And we want everyone to be part and parcel. We're not forcing anyone. We do have a website, which I will share on the chat space, where people can go and actually critique whether we're saying the right things or not. And most of the time is that we speak in English, as well as with my school, have our own conversations in our own languages, so that at least we get each other. Because I think sometimes semantics concepts, we miss each other. But with those few words, thanks very much to you again, Siyathokoza, Ntsiki, to the Moya collective. Thank you very much. And to all of the speakers today, thank you guys. And may you be blessed in everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Butsepo. Nomsa, closing remarks?
All right. Building and doing things does not, it can be emotional, but I like to not be emotional about things. And I think in our working, when you are not earning money that is due to you, there is a high propensity to be emotional about things. I want to start where we're talking about petitions and court cases and boards and all of that. The board of Samro, over the past three decades, every single board has had a problem, and the members have had a problem with the board. And throughout my career, my question has always returned to the same place to say, do we love ourselves as Black people? Is it possible for us to be compassionate when dealing with each other? Are we able to look further than what is in front of our eyes? The problem of the Samro board is not the board. It's the environment within which the board exists in, which is something I tried to describe, where I said the negotiating or the balance of power around the board is such that Samro itself is not it's not motivated. So when you wake up in the morning, your bladder is full of wee. Whether you want to go to the toilet or you don't want to go to the toilet, your bladder has decided you're going to the toilet. At Samro, there is no bladder that decides you're going to distribute the money to the members. The bladder says you're going to collect all the money that is out there, that is due to South African composers, whether they are your members or they are not your members. That's what the bladder is saying. And then the members want the money to be collected to them, but the bladder is not saying that. So then you have individuals who make decisions about what will happen to this stuff here, this money. The board makes a mistake, or they do it on purpose, or they steal. But them stealing, the bladder is not saying they must account. No. The people who are in control of the bladder are the people who own the market share. And the market share, owners of the market share, which are the major labels and they are publishing auxiliaries, because the publishing, Sony Publishing is still part of Sony. Those parts are making the decision. And there is undock, which I described. Undock, it's unmatched, which means, yes, you can have Casper and Your Vest song there, but the way that it's registered there, it's not matching with the way Casper is trying to collect, so it goes to undock. I did say music that's not matched. I also said music that is incorrectly notified or not notified at all. I worked at Capasso. I was on the board of Capasso for 2 terms. I know what I'm talking about. That money, market share, the people who have the deciding power want that money that is not theirs. Trust me, the people with market share know all of their music. They are collecting all of their music. There is no one at Sony who didn't collect money that was due to Sony. Those people are making the decision for undock. So the board makes a mistake of 30 million rand. Sony is going to get 100 million from undock if the board pushes the members to make a decision to redistribute the undock per market share. The board is far more interested in getting the members to agree to that market share, which every year the members agree to, so that the people with the real decision-making power to make them accountable for the 30 million that's lost are happy about their 100 million. So we keep saying it's Proverb, it's so-and-so, it's Sibongile Khumalo, it's this person, it's that person. It's not that, it's not those people. Those are the people that have been put on the boards so that the members can feel represented. But the mechanism, it's been institutionalized to perform a different function, and the function is not to serve the members. Then, when we're speaking about policy and speaking about laws and how they are operationalized, I ran Soweto Theatre. I reached my targets. I served. I have no doubt in my mind that I was of service. The Soweto Theatre was busy and was full when I was the general manager there. I was working within this policy environment that's so broken that everybody's talking about. I was working under the laws that are so broken. But I said to myself, how am I going to operationalize the intention of these policies and these laws? I will not be blocked to do my work. Now, what happens when we do that? People that are like that, doing that, because we can have the best laws. Over the past 30 years, South Africa has had different versions of development plans. ASGISA, GIPSA, RDP. Now we've got the national NDP. Every time it's a great policy, people try to get as much information as they can possibly get to create a great policy. The problem is in implementation. So when we say that there's a policy that's not working, and we say one part of the policy is the problem, yes, there is a world where we get rid of the whole policy. That's fine. If the whole policy is problematic, get rid of the whole policy and start over. But that was the attitude of the RDP. RDP was a great policy, but it had things that were not working. Then we said ASGISA. Then there's something in ASGISA that's not. Then we said GIPSA. How many times are we going to keep walking back to the beginning of the race? Because now we want to complain. No, there's pebbles on this race course. Let's go back, sweep away the pebbles. No, now there's cracks in the race course. We go back, fix the cracks. At some point, you've got to continue running and say, how do we fix these cracks and keep moving? Which is why I'm saying, let's understand what is wrong. If it's the entire policy, then get rid of it and start over. But we can't have, we've started over more than 5 times in South Africa. So I really think we have to think about how we operationalize things. And I'm not a fan of getting rid of boards or getting rid of chairperson or running petitions, or I'm a fan of getting things done. I show results. What are we doing to get results? We spoke about it. At Samro, it must be your ID number for members and your company number for publishing houses. Then your works get under your ID number, so that they cannot have this new bureaucracy of a Samro identification number, of a capacity identification number, that everything is under your ID number, because SARS knows how much I've earned. Whether I got it from Nziki or I got it from Jay, SARS knows that I got 30,000 in total. So we need to make that system work well. When it comes to the board, let's look at why is it that the boards are not working? Every time we get new people, there's always a drama. What is it about this house that makes it that when people walk in here, the first place they go to is the toilet? Maybe the house is built incorrectly. Thank you.
Aitome, please come in just before Karabo, and we're closing it up now, guys. Aitome. I think your mic is off because we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Super. Thanks, Nzigi. The last thing I have to say is a bit of homework for you, please. I know I didn't mention this one in the beginning because it's not fully, we don't have full access to it, and it's a BRICS initiative. More specifically, it is President Ibrahim Traore who has invited artists. So please, can you speak to our mother, Dr. Mother Litchfield Shabalala, to provide us with how we can specifics on how we can access that specific funding. I am in the UK, so I don't just talk about these things when it comes to BRICS, especially since the UK is at war with Russia. So I'm still myself, don't worry. But yeah, that's the last thing that I have to say. I have sent you in the private chat some of those links to some of these fundings, so you can post those in the group chat on WhatsApp later, or also on your timeline, whatever you choose. I'm going to continue to look for more and send you more, because I've only looked at the UK, haven't looked fully at the EU, haven't looked at Canada, and there's a lot. And I haven't looked at China and Japan, because Japan also does a lot of cultural exchange programs with artists, because they take art very seriously in Japan. So I'm going to have a look at all of these countries one by one and access as much information as I can, and I'll share it with Mamia, and we'll take it from there. You got my number, girl. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And in conclusion, Karab.
Thank you. Let's just say thanks to everyone. I've quite learned a lot. The one thing that I think we ignore a lot is what someone mentioned. It's Jay, right? In terms of Jaysri, it's Jaysri or Jaysri. In terms of the mental health, and it's a serious issue, and I think we're ignoring it. If you kind of like go back 2 years backwards, you actually realize people that we lost, it's either it's heart attack or it's either stroke. It's quite a lot of creative that we have seen in going down that lane. So I think we quite have to look into that and try to assist as much as we can. in regards to that. Dr. Tsepo, I appreciate your input in regards to what we should be also looking at. And just to add into that also, I mean, there's a lot of AGMs that happen every year, end of the year. And funny enough, when you look at the input that everybody has put in through at the AGM, you don't come back with the results next year that all those were dealt with or resolved. So you kind of like, it really is not helping. So when I dig deep into the Samro, there is a system already designed, which I think we need to look closer to that system, where literally the more the vote, the more the number or amount of money you make, the more the votes you have. So the votes are based on that. And guess what? Those who have the votes are the same, board members, big companies. You know what I mean? So 3 of them, if they can talk to each other and just say, we want Karabo out, with the whole full house at the AGM, at annual general meeting, literally they can vote you out. So maybe it's one thing, the first step we need to take is actually get rid of that law that actually allows, you know what I mean, giving points based on the amount of money. And that thing has been going is deeper, because it's been going on what we called, it used to be the money that it get given out at end of the year. It comes from the black box. So black box will be money that comes from investment. Is not having the owner, including the undocumented money. It will be put into that, and end of the year will be paid out to all the members, but based on the same points. So the big companies will make your 3-4 million rand from that money, the black box. You know what I mean? It was substantial, a lot of money. You know what I mean? So the points that we need to get rid of that. Every person per company must have 1 point, and we can easily dismiss putting them out completely. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, even if at AGM, when we have points and want to vote someone out, you know what I mean? They just literally 3 of them, they just talk and they vote. Otherwise, you are all gone. You know what I mean? That's the first step, I think, that we need to really look into and deal with all this mess. But anyway, Tiki and everyone else, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. They say there's never been a day where you don't learn. I learned quite a lot, and I appreciate everyone, you know what I mean, and everybody at Moya. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. These sessions are really insightful. A reminder that they're every last Friday of the month from 10 until 12 p.m. So please, more people come so that we can unpack these issues. What is really clear to me from this session is that we do need to have one of these sessions and have people from Samro and have these conversations in public with transparency. Things are obviously not working out. And the danger is that these board members keep becoming gatekeepers, they get their 5,000 Rand for every meeting they go to, which keeps them protecting the system that's not working for people. So we do definitely need to unpack and look at how these things are working. And it's not just Samro, as Butsepo said, there's other arts fraternities and departments that have similar structures. So perhaps we're going to start calling in the heads of these institutions to come and speak to us so that we can find ways to change the way things are going, because artists can no longer be exploited. We are tired of doing collections every time somebody dies when we are working. And it's frustrating to see the people who administrate our work being the ones driving BMWs, being the ones with medical aid, being the ones with retirement annuities, and we are dying broke. So something has got to give. So we'll see you again the last Friday of April at 10 a.m. Thank you so much to all the speakers for all your knowledge and your time and all the wisdom that you share with us. We really appreciate it. And sorry to the speakers who couldn't speak this time. You'll speak again next time. There is a WhatsApp group for the artists in Indaba. So if you just reach out to me on the social media, even on the flyer, there's the number there that we can send you the link to the WhatsApp group. And that's where you're going to have access to all the funding institutions that were mentioned today. So thank you so much, speakers. Have